explain it to them and to show the benefit of it. If you have a standard that is of no benefit to the organization, throw it out. Don't even look at it. But you have to persuade, you have to show that following that standard is to the advantage of the hospital. And these are the advantages. I'm sorry to put the blame on the surveyors, but there's where it belongs.
Not on Anuvat,
Some of the surveys here.
Another question is that quite often some will say that as an accreditation organization, you are not supposed to teach, you are not supposed to support, you just go in and evaluate and certify. Otherwise, you would have a conflict of interest. What's your comment about that?
You know, you can teach monkeys to do a survey. Going into the hospital and checking whether the hospital is abiding by the standards, anybody can do that. Remember, the whole accreditation process is an educational process. We want to learn from it. We don't just want to do it. You don't get anywhere. Just following the standards doesn't provide quality. Quality comes from within, the inner power that you use to provide the quality to the patient. What is good for the other person? What is good for the hospital? Not the surveyors. You're not concerned about the surveyors. Why am I here? Is to help the hospital in providing better quality care. And how are we going to do that? And you work together with the hospital as a team. Let's look at the situation. We don't understand the standards. What do they mean? And then you can start exploring and perhaps even use examples that you learn in another hospital. I remember of a hospital that had the same problem. They did not understand. And then this is what they did about it. This is how the processes they set in place. This is how they handled the indicators and the information from the indicators. This is how they communicated these standards with one another. Remember, it is an educational process. It is a learning process at every step of the way.
Thank
You're
you.
not satisfied.
No, I just hope that tonight, when you go to the surveyor meeting, you just emphasize all these points to them, please.
I am looking forward to having a meeting with the surveyors, and don't be afraid because we're going to eat first. And then after the meal, we're going to talk about the responsibilities of the hospital and the responsibilities of the surveyors. And how do we survey a hospital? I enjoy surveying a hospital because I learn so much. Every time I go into the hospital, I always learn something new. And to be able, as a surveyor, to teach and to encourage and to help the hospital to be part of their team in accomplishing the quality that you're looking for. Surveyors are the most important part. I know that doctors are important within the hospital, but the Accreditation program, it is the surveyors that keep it together. And it is the behavior of the surveyors that dictates the success of the program.
That's the last question from Professor Jit.
Well, it's not a question, it's more or less a comment. You remember I first asked what is the quality, what is the indicators that an HA system and institution who provide accreditation is a good one. And listen through all the discussion, I feel that we come to the very critical point. The first thing is that it is an educational process. An educational process means teaching and learning. It is not the surveyor who teach the hospital or the hospital who teach the surveyors. No, no, otherwise we are on opposite poles. It is an educational process. Educational process to do what? To build a teamwork. A teamwork within the hospital. You have, the director have to respect the doctors have to respect the nurses, and so on. Without the teamwork, you cannot put the patient at the center of your focus. So educational process to build a teamwork to focus on the patient. Those are the kind of theme. If accreditation means you only have to give certificate, tear down the HA institution, it's not worth it. It is an educational process that we learn, we grow together, and every level of the hospital are different. They have different contexts. So when we do educational system, we have to take the context of the hospital within the focus also. How do we learn together, teach and learn, build the team to focus on the patient? And in that process, doctors are important, as well as the nurses. They are not the most important people, as well as the support staff, because the nurse stay with the patient all the time. The doctors only comes in after the patient is dead sometimes, right? So they have to have trust. They have to communicate together. If the educational system is to build up a system that has the patient as the focus, every member are as important. But without the physician who makes, the most knowledgeable about physical condition, the nurses may be more attuned to psychological and suffering and so on and so on. So there are different aspects. The teams are important. It's like a body. You have the heart, the brain, the hands, the liver. How can you say that the heart is more important than the brain? Right? They are part of the same body. They do different functions. And the surveyors have to understand this. When I was head of the WHO business line 2, we usually have to send project for approval, for accredited, ethical accreditation by someone else, accreditation body, somewhere in America. I don't mention that name. But we spend so much money. So the money we spend, like we spend at HA and so on, we spend so much money, but they only tell us whether you pass or fail. No use. They only tell us whether they will give us a certificate. No use. We don't learn much. So we develop a system we call WHO recognition system. We recognize that you are doing good something, you are deficient in another thing. It is an educational process. We learn together how to improve it. So we give you options. These are the things that you can do. What do you think about it? You know, it's an educational process. It's both ways to build the team, to help build focus on the patient. And I think a good HA have to have these elements, and not the accreditation in the real meaning of the word, meaning you give only certificate or not. It is a learning process, team building process to focus on the patient, and that will bring about quality eventually. That's a comment, not a question.
That's a very good comment and also a summary of the session. Thank you, Professor Jit. Also, thank you, Dr. Chumsak and Dr. Supachai.
I do ask for forgiveness because I want to ask you a question. Are you a surveyor?
Unfortunately, not. Fortunately, not.
So what are you going to do about that?
Well, I think it is the mentality. The mentality of the surveyors of the hospital management, the mentality. Why are you doing this? That's the question that you ask people. Why are you doing this? You are doing this because you think that you know the standards better than the other, or you are doing this because you respect the dignity of the patient as a human being. And because of that respect, you are doing this because you are not caring for the patient alone. So a surveyor should communicate with the hospital and the team to build up a team that would have the same ideology, respect for human dignity, the patient as a human being, and we respect them for that. Right?
We need you.
We can have something that we call a co-creation to build up the HA that value to the healthcare system of Thailand. I would like to thank all of us who participate in this section and in joining the discussion, and I think that we have some of the idea or some of the work to do in the future, a lot of work to do. And thank you very much again.
We will have 20-minute break for some refreshment, and then at 3 o'clock we will start with the Japan compensation system for adverse events in obstetrics.